My 5-year-old dialed a random number crying. Mummy collapsed. She accidentally called her billionaire father, who never knew she existed. He thought he had everything: power, wealth, control. Then a 5-year-old he'd never met called in the middle of the night and said, Mummy collapsed. That call changed everything. The world outside Ethan Ward's penthouse slept beneath a blanket of San Francisco fog. Inside, the glow of a half-finished code sequence reflected off glass walls and empty whiskey glasses. Ethan was used to silence. He'd built his empire on it, but when his phone buzzed at 3:17 a.m., the sound felt different. Too sharp, too human. An unknown Arizona number blinked on the screen. He frowned. Nobody good called at that hour. For a second, his thumb hovered over decline, but something, maybe curiosity, maybe guilt, made him answer. Hello? A breath. Then, a trembling whisper. Is this Ethan Ward? He sat up. Who's speaking? Mummy. Mummy fell down. She's not waking up. Ethan's chest tightened. It wasn't a prank. The voice was small, shaking, real. His greater-than-sweetheart. What's your name? Lila. A pause. Mummy told me to call you if something bad happened. The words sliced through the static and through 6 years of silence. Ethan's pulse roared in his ears as a single name clawed its way up from his memory. Elena. He hadn't heard her name spoken aloud since the night she left the woman who had loved him before ambition devoured everything they built together. The woman who vanished before he ever knew she was pregnant. Now, somewhere in Arizona, a child who knew his name was crying for help. Welcome back, my beautiful family and friends. I've missed you more than you know. It's been a difficult stretch with all the technical issues, but by God's grace, we're finally steady again. Thank you for every moment you stayed, waited, and returned. Your support is the reason this channel is still standing. Before we start, allow me to speak a quick blessing over everyone watching. To the women, may God strengthen your spirit, quiet every storm in your heart, and surround you with uncommon favor. To the men, may God guide your steps, multiply your efforts, and give you wisdom that opens doors no one can shut. And may his protection remain over each of you, wherever you are. Amen. Now, before we dive in, I need to ask you for something important. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do it now. Not because it's routine, but because every single story I bring here is crafted for you. And when you're not subscribed, I feel like I'm telling these stories into the dark, not knowing if the very people they were meant for will ever see them. My USA family, my UK family, you are a huge part of this community. When you subscribe, you keep this channel alive. When you don't, I feel that silence. And trust me, you don't want to miss what's coming tomorrow. So hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Let me know you're here. Let me know I'm not talking to an empty room. Now, let's get into today's story. Ethan stood, the city's skyline a blur beyond the window. Every instinct screamed that this was impossible, but as Lila's sobs echoed through the phone, he felt the cold, undeniable truth. This wasn't a wrong number. It was a reckoning. Is greater than 6 years earlier. The air in the old Mission District apartment had always smelled like burnt coffee and adrenaline. Back then, success had felt close enough to touch a living, breathing thing that pulsed between Ethan Ward and Elena Cruz. They had built Nixora from nothing. 2 laptops, a whiteboard covered in half-erased code, and a shared belief that technology could change lives. The nights were long, the ramen cheap, and their dreams ridiculous. But when Elena laughed, that unguarded, too loud laugh, Ethan believed they could rewrite the world together. He remembered her now, barefoot on the hardwood floor, hair tied up messily, typing furiously at 2 a.m. You can't just make something people use, she'd said once, smiling at him. You have to make something people feel. Back then, he'd agreed. Back then, he'd loved her more than ambition. But love has a way of bending under pressure. When Nixora exploded into the spotlight, investors circling, media calling Ethan the next Jobs, the fire that had united them turned into something else. Elena wanted innovation that empowered people. Ethan wanted domination. She argued for integrity. He argued for speed. They stopped building together and started fighting against each other. One night, in the middle of their third consecutive 20-hour workday, she confronted him as greater than, "We were supposed to make something human," she said, her voice cracking. "Now you just want to own the world. Is greater than, and what's wrong with that?" he'd snapped. "Someone has to lead. Someone has to win." Elena stared at him like she was seeing a stranger. "Winning isn't the same as being right, Ethan." That argument became the one that ended everything. She packed her things in silence, sliding her ring onto the kitchen counter beside a coffee mug that still bore her lipstick stain. He didn't follow her. He didn't say a word. When the door closed, the sound was small, but it echoed for years. He threw himself into Nexora, expanding, conquering, buying silence with success, and somewhere between the first billion-dollar valuation and his 50th sleepless night, he convinced himself Elena had just been another casualty of ambition, but now her voice lived in that little girl's sobs. Her warning, "You'll build a world that has everything," except a heart, came back like a curse fulfilled. Ethan blinked at the city lights outside his window. 6 years older, 6 years colder. The phone in his hand felt heavier than it should have. He had built an empire of code and glass, and somewhere in the quiet, he had lost the only thing real. Until tonight, Ethan's reflection trembled in the window, sleepless eyes, clenched jaw, the weight of something he couldn't yet name. Lila's soft whimpers came through the speaker, small and terrified. "Hey, Lila," he said carefully, steadying his voice. "It's okay. You did the right thing calling me. Where's your mum now?" A sniffle. "She's on the floor. I tried to wake her, but she won't open her eyes." His mind shifted into problem-solving mode, the same precision that had built his empire now sharpened by fear. "Listen, sweetheart. I need you to stay in your room and lock the door. Do you know your address?" She repeated it slowly, her voice breaking halfway through. "Phoenix. Miles away." He opened another browser tab, typing her name, Lila Cruz, and then, hesitating, added Elena. The search results hit like a punch. Elena Cruz Miller. New last name. No husband listed. No social media. She'd erased herself. "I'm sending help right now," he promised, dialing 911 with one hand, keeping her on speaker. The dispatcher's calm voice cut through the chaos as he gave them the address. Sirens were dispatched. Relief almost came until a sound shattered it. A crash, a door slamming, Lila's gasp. "Lila, talk to me." Static filled the line. Then a muffled sob. "Someone's outside." Mommy said not to open the door. His throat tightened. "Lock it, Lila. Stay where you are. I'm coming." Another sound, heavy footsteps, a man's voice in the distance, and then a scream so sharp it froze him mid-breath. "Lila." Silence. The call. Disconnected. Ethan stood there, heart pounding, phone cold in his hand, the city's neon reflection cutting across his face. For the first time in years, control meant nothing. All that mattered was getting to her. The clock read 3:41 a.m. when Ethan made the first call. Within minutes, his private jet was being fueled at San Francisco International Airport, engines humming beneath the floodlights. He threw on a jacket, barely registering the city skyline behind him, a monument to ambition that suddenly felt meaningless. His assistant, half asleep and confused, stammered through the phone. "Mr. Ward, should I inform the board there's been a—" "Tell them it's personal." Ethan cut in. "I'll handle everything when I get back." He didn't mention that personal now meant a 5-year-old girl's terrified voice echoing in his head. By the time the jet lifted into the dark sky, the world below blurred into silence, only the hum of the engines and the steady pulse of adrenaline. Ethan stared out over the glowing grid of Los Angeles as they crossed overhead, his thoughts replaying every memory of Elena Cruz. Her laughter in a Santa Monica cafe, the way she'd defended ethics when he'd chosen expansion, her last words before she left. Now she was gone again. Maybe for good. He opened his laptop, searching Lila Cruz Miller. No school records, no photos, no trace. But her birth year 5 years ago lined up perfectly. His pulse quickened. Could she really be his? The phone vibrated suddenly. Unknown number. Arizona area code. He answered on instinct. Lila? A whisper. They're back. His grip tightened. Who, sweetheart? I don't know. Men, they're outside. Mummy's gone. The sound of a door creaking. Her breathing quickened. Listen to me, he said, voice trembling despite himself. Hide. Go to the closet. Don't make a sound. She obeyed. The call went silent, except for her shallow breaths. Somewhere over the Nevada desert, Ethan Ward, billionaire, CEO, and master of control, felt something awaken. Her father. The Phoenix sun was just beginning to rise when Ethan's jet touched down at Sky Harbor International Airport. By the time he reached the apartment complex in Tempe, police lights painted the pale stucco walls red and blue. The early morning air smelled of dust and something heavy of fear. He barely spoke as he crossed the yellow tape. Ethan Ward. He caught himself before finishing. A friend of the tenant. An officer nodded him through, distracted by the chaos inside. The door hung open. The lock splintered. A coffee mug lay shattered near the entryway, still sticky with what had once been hot liquid. Papers were strewn across the floor, and there, among the debris, a photo frame face down. He turned it over, his own face, stared back beside Elena's, younger and happier, frozen in a life he'd ruined. His throat tightened. A faint whimper came from down the hall. Ethan followed the sound to a small bedroom. The closet door was cracked open. Lila? He whispered. Tiny eyes blinked up at him from the shadows. A child clutching a cell phone, cheeks streaked with tears. She hesitated, then stepped forward. You came. 2 words, soft, certain, cut through him like glass. He knelt, arms open, unsure if she'd let him, but she did, climbing into his embrace like she'd known him all her life. Mummy's gone, she whispered. Strangers took her. Ethan swallowed the lump in his throat. You're safe now, he promised, even as doubt gnawed at him. I'll find her. I swear it. When the police finally asked who he was, Ethan met their gaze and simply said, family. And for the first time, the word didn't feel like a lie. The room at the Arizona Grand Resort was quiet except for the rhythmic hum of the air conditioner and Lila's soft breathing. She'd finally fallen asleep, curled up on the bed, clutching the same phone she'd used to reach him. Ethan sat by the window, city lights fading into dawn, laptop open, fingers trembling over the keys. He'd built an empire by finding answers. Tonight, he was hunting for one that might break him. Elena Cruz, now listed as Elena Miller, public records confirmed had been working for a small non-profit called Integrity Now, based in downtown Phoenix. A quick search revealed what they did. Expose corporate corruption. Ethan's stomach dropped as he saw a familiar name. Their latest investigation targeted Connex Systems, one of his most aggressive competitors and a company he'd nearly merged with 6 years ago. He clicked deeper, tracing her digital footprints, encrypted emails, press drafts, encrypted attachments. But one file stopped him cold. Emergency contacts. He opened it. There was only one name. Ethan Ward. He stared at it, unable to breathe. It wasn't anger that had kept her away. It was fear. Protection. She hadn't vanished to punish him. She'd been shielding their daughter from the very world his ambition had helped create. He scrolled through her last few messages. Threats. Anonymous. Ruthless. Stay quiet or your family pays the price. His reflection in the laptop screen looked foreign, haunted. Behind him, Lila stirred. Is Mommy okay? She mumbled. Ethan turned, forcing a steady voice. I'll make sure she is, he said. And in that moment, the billionaire who once built a fortress of control felt it crumble, leaving only a father desperate to make things right. By afternoon, sunlight spilled through the hotel curtains, painting soft gold over the room. Lila sat cross-legged on the carpet, crayons scattered around her, drawing a stick figure holding hands with a smaller one. When Ethan asked who they were, she smiled, shyly. Is greater than, that's you and me, she said. Mummy said you build things that make people happy. The words hit him harder than any boardroom betrayal ever had. Elena had told her stories, bedtime tales about a man who dreamed big, who made the world brighter. She hadn't painted him as the man who broke her heart. She'd given Lila the best version of him, the one she must have hoped still existed somewhere. As they talked, the walls between them softened. Lila told him about her favorite book, Goodnight Moon, and how her mum always read it in funny voices. Ethan listened, memorizing every giggle, every glance. It felt foreign, and yet it felt like home. Later, a quiet knock came at the door, the courier with the DNA results he'd ordered overnight. He hesitated before opening it, fingers trembling as he tore the envelope. The report was clear, 99.99% match. He sank onto the edge of the bed, throat tight. Every deal he'd ever made, every victory he'd chased, none of it compared to this single, humbling truth. Is greater than... I didn't even know you existed, he whispered. Lila looked up, eyes wide but calm. Is greater than... That's okay, she said softly. Mommy said you'd come when I needed you. Ethan closed his eyes, emotion flooding through him. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a CEO, or a billionaire, or a brand. He felt like a father. Ethan hadn't slept in 30 hours. Every ounce of his focus burned toward one goal, finding Elena. Using contacts from his cybersecurity division, he hacked into surveillance networks, tracing her final digital footprints, credit card transactions, email metadata, GPS pings. The trail led to a rented storage unit on the outskirts of Tempe. Inside, beneath a tarp and dust, he found her hidden life binders of research, encrypted drives, and one small hard drive labeled, "If anything happens." On a monitor nearby, archived footage played, two men forcing Elena into a black SUV. The timestamp, less than 24 hours old. Ethan's chest tightened. He sent the video to the police, but when they warned him to stay put until backup arrived, he didn't wait. He'd spent years letting others fight his battles, not this one. Following the SUV's route, Ethan tracked it to a derelict warehouse outside Phoenix. Desert wind howled against rusted metal as he stepped inside, the smell of gasoline sharp in the air. "Ethan?" The voice was faint, hoarse, disbelieving. He turned. Elena sat tied to a chair, bruised but unbroken. When their eyes met, time collapsed. He cut her free, pulling her close just as a flicker of flame crawled along the floor. They ran. Behind them, the warehouse erupted, a thunderous inferno, swallowing every trace of the truth she'd tried to expose. In the car, as sirens wailed in the distance, Elena clutched his hand. Tears streaked her face. "Is greater than, I never stopped loving you," she said quietly. "I just couldn't let her grow up in your world where power mattered more than people." Ethan looked at her, eyes burning with both grief and resolve. "Is greater than, then let's build a new one." The hospital room was still, except for the soft hum of machines and the gentle rhythm of Lila's breathing. She slept curled against Elena's side, one tiny hand clutching her mother's hospital gown, as if afraid to let go. Morning light spilled through the blinds, painting everything in shades of gold, the kind of gold money could never buy. Ethan stood by the window, staring out at Phoenix as it woke, the skyline washed in warmth, the desert stretching endlessly beyond. It was a city built on resilience, on second chances, and maybe, he thought, so was he. His phone buzzed on the table, messages from San Francisco. The board was panicking. Investors wanted answers. The world he'd built still demanded his attention, but for the first time, he didn't reach for it. Instead, he opened a new message, typed a few words, and hit send. "Is greater than, effective immediately. I resign as CEO of Ward Technologies." He transferred control to his most trusted partner, a quiet sense of peace replacing the constant hum of ambition. The empire could run without him. What mattered was right here, a family he'd almost lost before he even knew it existed. Behind him, a small voice broke the silence. "Is greater than, are you staying, Daddy?" Ethan turned. Lila's eyes blinked open, sleepy and searching. He knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Is greater than, forever." he whispered, pulling her close. Elena watched them, tears shining, but this time they weren't from fear. As sunlight filled the room, Ethan's voice echoed in quiet narration. "Is greater than I spent my life chasing success. Turns out love was the only thing worth being found for. And with that, his real life finally began." Thank you for watching this story to the end. This story reminds us that sometimes life gives us second chances, not to change the past, but to do the right thing when it matters most. Ethan's journey wasn't just about finding his family. It was about finding himself, learning that love, forgiveness, and presence mean far more than success ever could. As the holidays draw near, may we all find our way back to the people who once felt too far away, the family we lost, the hearts we drifted from, the love we thought was gone. This Christmas, may we all find reunion, peace, and new beginnings. If you enjoyed this story, you'll love the next one even crazier, deeper, and full of emotion. Stick around for more heart-touching tales with Mr. David Stories, and don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss what's coming next. Until next time, hold on to what truly matters.